Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I am Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be building the new Pro Sim Racing Cockpit from the guys at All for One Gaming, sporting a cool-looking chrome blue 45 series profile with clever structural enhancement bits and a very unique-looking pedal tray assembly. It also has to be one of the most organized assembly and parts cataloging I've ever seen in a sim racing cockpit kit. Now, this will be part one of a two-part video review series called The Build. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. So let's see what we get to start out with the all-in-one gaming Pro Sim Cockpit. First off, we get these pages that are in this nice little plastic sheath. And the first page on top is basically an introduction to all-in-one gaming, their story, and also how they're going to be telling you to assemble this cockpit. And the first thing you see up here, we got some pictures of tools telling us what those are, and this is in the Essentials kit. Now, all of these pieces in this kit are in groups. They come in groups for the boxes, and they have labels on every single piece of profile, and we'll see that in a minute, that will guide you as far as grouping the parts together so that really you just assemble each section and it's all laid out for you. The second page, and by the way, the first couple of pages here on some pretty heavy stock. This is a getting started guide with words of wisdom about how to go about assembling your cockpit and getting a helper. It might be handy to have one of those, although I usually don't have one of those at the SRG. And last but not least, we get the Pro Series Sim instruction. Little booklet here. It's just got a staple in it, nothing too fancy, but it is some good directions as far as assembly. It gives us a parts list, so you can check your parts, make sure all the parts are there that are supposed to be there, and there's a couple of pages worth of that. And then we get right into the assembly, and we're going to start off with the base assembly, just like we do all cockpit builds. Now, let's look at this grouping system that they use. Each assembly group has its own, like a box of parts, and of course the profiles are going to be using to assemble it. And the boxes should have the corner brackets, the bolts, and those kind of things in it. So everything's in its own compartment, which is kind of neat. This is the first cockpit that I've ever had at the SRG that was delivered this way. And the process of putting it together was assembled this way. First off, let's take a look here. This is the first one that I'm going to open anyway. It's called the Essentials box. Now, it's rattling around in there a little bit because I've already taken the bubble wrap out and stuff because I didn't want to have to do that while I was showing you this. So the Essentials basically is what we saw on this first page over here I showed you, and that's all these tools and goodies they give you with your cockpit. We have a Bondus metric set of wrenches. Very nice. I use Bondus a lot, and I don't know if you guys ever use hex wrenches out there much, but it's a pretty decent brand. I've never really had any issues or complaints with them. They always did a pretty good job for me. So we get one of those. We get this long 5mm T-wrench, and that's to get into certain spaces that we can't reach with the shorter version. And of course, I'll probably be using my own tools as I normally do here at the SRG. But yeah, it's nice that we get this little T-wrench, and this is a solid steel piece here in the handle, so it looks like a pretty heavy-duty unit. It also looks like it may have been used a little bit, but that's not uncommon for manufacturers to send something like a tool that's already been used to the SRG because they know it's for review. The customer is going to get a new one of these. What else we got? We got this cool thing. And this is called Vention, and that's the name of the company, I think, because a lot of the boxes came with Vention. Vention is the manufacturing of the actual profiles, I believe, and this is one of their little rulers, which is kind of a cool thing. You can see here on one side, we have millimeters, and this goes all the way to, it looks like 150 millimeters because we've got 140 there, and I'm counting 10 all the way to the other side. But you can see it's segmented in tens pretty much all the way through, and it gives us some other numbers on there. We also have an angle meter, so we know where a 45-degree angle is, or a 90-degree, and of course 180 if you need to use it for that. And on the other side, for the North American people, we have the regular inch system or imperial system. Very cool little tool here. You can use it for a straight edge and for measuring things as you're doing your build. We also got some bags of extra parts. These are 18mm long M8 bolts, and they are black socket head cap units. These are extra bolts. They give you this package so that you can, if you have a bolt missing somewhere, you can add one of these bolts to it and you're good to go. So as they say in the instructions, you know, no trips to the local hardware store if you don't have the right bolt and you're in the middle of your build. It's kind of neat that they actually did that, put some extras in and did it on purpose and labeled it. We have some cable ties, and these are just some Velcro cable ties so that you can tie off your cables on your cockpit when you need to. Along with the extra 10 M8 bolts, we get 10 of these spring ball T-nuts. These are M8 also, of course. And these are spring ball, which I really like. I don't like the leaf spring T-nuts, even though they work and they get the job done. These are just easier to use, easier to slide in the profiles. It's just a better product. The quality is better on these than they are the leaf spring T-nuts, even though, again, they do get the job done. And we've got one more thing here, and that's a 13mm wrench. This looks like a no name. Wait a minute. It's got Tektron on it. So that's a 13mm Tektron. It has a regular end and a box end to help with your assembly. And that's all we get. Of course, again, it was all wrapped up in bubble wrap and stuff. Now, also, each piece of profile here has a label on it also. And you can see this one says Essentials Kit. So, and it has a number on it there, and it tells you what this is. It's a 405mm long piece of 45 by 45 profile. And remember, this whole kit is 45 series. So it's like 40 series, which is the metric version. This is the Imperial 45. They are so close that I've never had any problems interchanging T-nuts or any of that stuff, corner brackets, between a 40 and a 45 series. I mean, they're just off like a millimeter, I think, on centers or something. So it really doesn't even affect anything. You can use 40 series hardware if you need to add something on and you don't want to get 45. I'm just letting you know that it's pretty much interchangeable. So we got two pieces of extra profile. So if you need something, you can cut the profile down or use the existing links of these profiles if you want to do something extra to the cockpit, which is very cool that you actually get some extra profiles and it's done on purpose. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like. This has a unique finish to it. It is anodized. I'm going to use a razor blade, and it's a very sharp new one, so it's not going to hit the aluminum. I just didn't want to try to wrestle with this cling wrap that they use in a lot of this shipping stuff as I am on the video. So we'll just go ahead and do it this way, see if I can make this work without scratching anything up. Missed a piece right here. Again, I found this is pretty much the easiest way to get this done. All right, so if you can get one corner off, usually you're good to go. There we go. And each piece is individually wrapped, so it should give a pretty good protection for the profile when it's shipped. Still made kind of a noise, didn't it? And this is what it looks like. I hope the color is conveying correctly. It's a blue, it's not a purple. I'm not sure. My monitor almost looks a little purple depending on which way I hold it. But this is a nice anodized finish on this piece, and you can see it's a very nice piece of profile. This is good quality profile. It is a lightweight version. You can see the ends are hollowed out here, and we have kind of this star pattern going on in the middle. And that's not drilled out too much as far as the extrusion when it comes out. This looks like to be about 5 millimeters across that as far as diameter. It has some very deep grooves on the top here. See that way that works? This is the first this style profile that I've seen. Usually it's a little bit narrower as far as that edge there. And of course our T-nuts are going to fit in there. And yeah, this is a good looking profile. It's blue. And blue's one of my more light colors. Red and blue, I think, is what I like. But of course everybody's different when it comes to that. But yeah, very nice finish done here. I don't see any obvious defects or imperfections. So yeah, this is what our cockpit's going to look like. It's going to be in this blue color. So once I get it assembled, I can't wait to see what it looks like, because I've had white before, and obviously black and silver or gray, but never blue. So yeah, can't wait to see what this looks like once we get it assembled. And again, these are extra pieces. What we'll do next is go ahead and pull out the pieces we're going to use for the base assembly and start putting this Pro Series cockpit together. So now we're going to put the base together, and we're going to have 5 pieces of profile to do that. We're going to have 2 of these. I only have one of these on the cart right now. And this is a 90-90. It's 1,350 millimeters long, so it's going to be a nice long cockpit. And you can see there is the center of it, all hollowed out. But it's still, as you imagine, a very hefty piece here. So 2 of these guys are going to make up the side rails. Now the end rails are going to be these guys. And these are 675 millimeter long, 45 by 90s. And again, of course, has that nice finish on it. And you can see the hollowed out point there. Still feels very stiff and substantial in hand. And we've only got 1 of these. And that's going to be a spreader between the 2 90s. And also is going to function as a seat rail end where we can attach the front of our seat rails to. The back of the seat rails can go up on top of these. But the front's going to have to go on top of this, which they don't give you a measurement for that. So I'm going to use this guy over here, which happens to be one of the seat rails. And you can see again, each individual part is labeled. So we've got a part number, we've got the length of it, and we've got whether there's 1 or 2 or 3. So this is 1 of 2. I'm going to use one of these to just as a marker or a measure so I can put this on the back of one of these profiles that's going to be on the back. And then that'll go up to where this bar crosses in between these 90 profiles. So I'll know exactly where this profile here needs to be when I'm mounting it. And you'll see how that works once I get there. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to have to probably adjust this later on. In fact, in the instructions over here, this is the second to last step. So I'd want to go ahead and do it first while I'm putting the base together so I don't ever have to move this again, unless there's some other reason I need to move it. Because I want to be very careful here. If you start putting this together, obviously you run a risk, a very real risk, of scratching up your profile, especially if this thing's sitting here against this nice surface. So we'll get this out of the way, like this. You can see that if I have it nice and tightly cinched, it's probably going to leave a mark anyway once I do that. But then I'm going to have to move it while the rest of the frame is completely tightened down, and that's not good either because it's probably going to scrape something and scratch something. So I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm going to go ahead and just set the distance by using that bar over there straight off. Now, we've got these corner brackets, and I got a regular 40 series corner bracket. I'm going to show you the differences here. Now, these things I noticed as soon as I picked them up, these are heavy corner brackets, and they're not steel, they're aluminum. But you can see there is a thickness difference in the walls here on the gussets. You can see how this is obviously thicker. It's obviously a bigger bracket. If I hold them kind of close there, you can see that that's how much the blue one's sticking out. So it is more substantial. This weighs in at about 88 grams, and this comes in at like 180 grams. So a substantial difference in the feel of this. And it has the logo on it, has Vention on there, which is obviously the manufacturer of this profile, and the brackets and all not the fasteners, but the brackets and everything that we're going to use here in this kit. And it even has a part number there. So you can see what the part number is. And in the instructions, again, this has got to be one of the most comprehensive kits I've ever gotten as far as building a rig. Every step of the way, they tell you what you need down there. And it gives you the part number, it gives you how many you're going to need, and this little legend at the bottom. And it's right on so far. So yeah, they did their homework on this. They put a lot of work in this actually to do this. I mean, to get each individual piece wrapped and labeled, and yeah, it's just pretty amazing what they've done here to make it easier on you to build it. We're going to be using some M8s, socket head caps, and of course we've got plenty of those. You saw in the first segment they actually gave us some extra ones, and we're using some nice high quality spring ball T-nuts, which I much prefer over that leaf spring T-nut system that comes out of China with the deeper channels in the profile. This just works so much easier. I mean, the other stuff works, don't get me wrong, but yeah, this is the upper crust. When you can use these, you hate to go back to those leaf springs. So that's about it. I'm going to put the cardboard down. We'll take all the parts over there and assemble it, and I'll just show you some of the pieces as I'm assembling them and give you some thoughts on that. As you can see, I have the base laid out now for final assembly, and I've got T-nuts. I've already preloaded all the T-nuts that I need in different places. I need one here, of course one across from there. I need one here and here for the 2 corner brackets, and a couple up front there. Now, there is a requirement to have on these 4590 bars 45 millimeters extending past the outside of these 9090 profiles. And that is kind of going to line up anyway, because once you take this center bar and get it where you want it to be, and you push these together, that should give you 45 millimeters hanging out on both sides. And you can take this nice aluminum ruler that we saw, is the parts that you get here for tools to help you work on this stuff. We can take this, and it has a nice 45 degree, or rather 45 millimeter and a 45 degree marking, but we're going to use this 45 millimeter. And I'll just look at it down here, butt it up against the outside of this 90-90, and that is dead on. Of course, I've been playing with it already, as you might imagine. I'm never that lucky to get it in the first shot. So I have 45 millimeters protruding. But again, all this lines up because it's been cut perfectly, and it lines up like it should. So it's really, you know, once you get this sandwiched in here, like I said, and get this even, you're good to go. Now, I've already got my T-nuts in here. I also have my corner brackets pre-mounted. Now the centerpiece, let me tap this apart, I don't want to scratch anything. Little comment about this, I've already got my corner brackets mounted, as you can see right here. I'm not sure, it doesn't say where you're going to end up with this as far as this goes. And it's not, you know, written in stone where it needs to be. But typically, this is going to be, because this is going to be supporting, rather, my seat rails, which are these guys, I want to go ahead and line this up before I tighten everything up, so I don't have to come back later and loosen both of these bolts under here where these corner brackets are, with this resting tightly up against here, and try to move it back and forth. I want to get that done before I get everything tight. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it could be a little bit sticking over like this if you want, but I tend to want to get things as close to a as perfect as I can. So I'm just going to kind of bump this along here and not try, well, let me just do this. Try not to scratch anything, obviously. This is another good time to know how far apart you're going to need your seat rails to be. I'm not going to put them on yet, because I need to flip this around to get the feet on, and we'll get to that subject next. But I know that I need this to be 365 degree, or rather millimeters, not degrees, centered on this for my seat to fit. So that will also tell me that where I need to mount my corner brackets. But again, I can do that once I come back. The important thing here is I'm getting this where I want it to be. And I just want it to be, you know, just a little bit, maybe a millimeter here, a millimeter there, short, right? So that, you know, nothing's sticking out over here in case I need to do something later on. Put it over here and see what I've got. And yeah, a little bit more that way. And once you tighten all this up, it's going to kind of square itself up anyway. So you're going to have perfect 90-degree angles everywhere on these corners here. At least you should if everything's cut properly. And it seems to be that way. So I know that's where I want this to be. So now I'm done with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and push my T-nut that I preloaded in here. I'm going to kind of lean down there. And this can be a little tricky to get my nut, or rather not my nut, but my bolt into the T-nut. But this is really where this T-wrench handle that comes with your kit as a tool comes in very handy. You can actually push this to where you think you need it to be. And then you can come in, and I have these brackets loose enough, I believe. Well, maybe, yeah, there we go. Then I can slide them out. And then I'm going to take this bolt here, this is the M8 bolt. I'm going to look down the side here, because I can see where that hole is. Just go ahead and put the bolt in the hole, feed it in first. Then I'm going to kind of look on it sideways. Now remember, with these brackets, these corner brackets, we don't have those slots in them, so we can slide things around, which makes it a little bit easier to attach things. But it's not as secure either, though, is just a hole which won't move on you. So I'm just going to kind of look at it as I'm putting it up there. And I'm not going to take the T-wrench because it wouldn't fit under here anyway. But this always fits. So I'm just going to kind of get in here, try to look what I'm doing at the same time, and see if I can get this thing to go into our T-nut in here. It's kind of not the easiest thing to do because it's under this bar and there's not a lot of clearance to work with. But if you grab it by the shaft, sometimes you can manipulate the shaft of the wrench to where it'll get started for you. I'll tell you, that feels like it's starting, and it is. Here we go. Now things moved around a little bit as I'm doing that, but that's okay. I'm going to check everything again real quick. So now that I've got that one started, I can come over here and do the same thing to this side. I'm not even messing with my corners yet because I'm not sure where they're going to end up once I get this where I want it to be. Again, I'm going to check my length, and I can see that it's moved on me over there. And everything's still loose. I'm not scratching anything, and that's what I want to do. Still be able to move things around a little bit. And it's closer to where I want to be there, and we're good there. So now, same thing. You're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to push this closer so it kind of lands, getting close to being bumping into things. And again, I'm going to take this T-wrench, the same thing I did over here, get that T-nut in there, which just popped out on me. Yeah, sometimes when you move these things, they want to pop back down on you, as far as pop out of the channel. And then you can pop it back in. Not that big of a deal, really. Okay, sometimes I'll take this to help me move it to where I want it to move. These channels are tight on these T-nuts, by the way, which is a good thing, but also you might have to wiggle them around a little bit to get them exactly where you want them to be. There we go. I think that's close. Yeah. Yeah, these things are very tight in the channel. Okay, I think that's got it. The idea is you want to be able to move it without making it jump around on you. So I'm just going to push it along here and get it where I need it to be, or close to it. And yeah, that's good. I'll get this a little bit more. I think that'll do it. Okay, now I'm kind of off angle here because I need to be looking straight down to do this, so I'm going to save this one for later. And then I'm going to go ahead over to this one. I think my T-nut is good over here already. I'll go ahead and get my bolt started. I can feel, a lot of times you can just feel it with your fingers if it's grabbing the threads in the T-nut, and that one went right in, so that's good to go. So now I'm going to go around, get them all started, and then I'm going to go ahead and get things tightened down. But just before I do my final tighten, I'm going to take this ruler. I'm going to make sure I'm still 45 millimeters of exposed profile sticking out on each side of this, and same thing down there, so everything's even. And then before I give it the final tighten, because I want to get it kind of tight, because I'm going to have to flip it over to get the feet on, and we'll come back and see what it looks like once I get everything cinched up. We're back with everything tightened down and positioned where it needs to be. I was able to maintain my spacing that I wanted to get my seat rail profiles mounted up here, and they're still just a bit shy of the end of the profile on this part and this part. So everything is looking pretty good there. I have my 45 millimeter spacing over here, and I checked it over here too, and it's about 44 and a half, so you know, half a millimeter. I'm not going to argue with that. And it's good on the front too, as far as my 45 millimeters as far as hanging out. So we're all good to go there. The only thing to do now is we're going to flip this over and put the feet brackets on. And the feet brackets actually are part of the structural integrity of this system, as far as when we're putting all the bracketry together here. So you'll see what I mean by that once we get to the foot installation, and that will be next. Now we're going to install the feet assemblies onto our chassis that we already have built back there that we saw in the previous segment. Now, it's kind of unique what they're doing here with their feet assembly. They're using these very large brackets, and you can see we have a set of 6 holes here, and we have 2 more holes out here. And one of these holes, the most outboard one, is going to be obviously to put our foot in. This is a very thick aluminum plate. The finish is very good on it. I don't see any defects anywhere. There is some counter sunk edges on these holes, but we're not using flat heads for this. It comes with these bolts. This is a 25 millimeter long M8 bolt, very similar to what we've been using so far, just a little bit longer because it has to go through this plate. And this plate is 12 millimeters thick. So it's a very thick aluminum plate here. And what's unique about what they've done here is these 6 bolts here are going to be in the 90 by 90 profiles that make up the sides of our cockpit. Then we have one more bolt in that 4590 that's on the back and the front in here. And then of course we have the hole for the foot. So this bracket, this big thick bracket, is going to be on the bottom of this cockpit over here, tying it together. It's going to be very stiff with this on the bottom, tying everything together. So when you look at it at first when we were building it, and it was only getting one corner bracket on the bottom row basically on this cockpit here. So we got 6 single corner brackets. Obviously that's not confidence inspiring for stiffness now, is it? But once we get these babies bolted in and tightened down, then we're going to have some stiffness into that chassis. So it's very simple what we're doing, just like we've been doing. We're going to be putting our spring ball T-nuts in, then we put our plates on top of that and run our 25 millimeter M8 bolts down into them, and saving the last hole over here for the feet. Now the feet are self-leveling. You can see it has a ball socket in here, so this thing will spin around. And we have a locking nut here that will be on the bottom of the plate. Let's take a look at that. It's got those serrated edges. I knew I was going to drop that. And this is an M12 as far as the thread goes. And you can see the serrated edges there. And this is an 18 millimeter nut size, which is a little different than the ones that are going to go on top. So once this plate is sitting like this on this, we're going to take these, which are also M12s, but they are 19 millimeters, so they're a little bit bigger in size, and it's just going to go on the top like that, and that's all we got to do. And there will be some adjustment, obviously, for height, because we can roll this up or down, and then the plate will be sitting on it, and based on where that's at is where the level is going to be on the cockpit once we have it up. And I don't know where it's going to be yet, but we'll figure that out once we get there. And it has kind of a rubber pad on the bottom here. See, it's kind of flexy. And it's got a 80 on it. I'm not sure if that's the durometer rating, but anyway, it's got an 80 on the bottom there. And it's got some holes through it, but I suppose we could use that for bolting this down to something, to the floor, if you wanted to. If you had the need to do that to secure it, then you could do that. Like if you had something like sitting on a rolling platform that you took to events or something, then you can bolt this down so it won't move around on your rolling platform. Right. Pretty simple. Got my wrenches over here. I got an 18, I got a 19. And what we'll do next is go over and we're going to flip the cockpit over, because I have it sitting in the top orientation now, and just flip it upside down. Then we'll go ahead and install these and see what that looks like. As you can see, I have the cockpit turned upside down now, and I've already installed 3 of these corner bracket slash foot brackets, and you can see how it's tying in each one of these corners here to the ends of the 90 series and the 4590s. And I'll just show you the last one here that as I install it. Just pre-installed my T-nuts, no big deal here. You know, just get them, I just got them basically lined up. You can still put a couple of bolts in and then still move it around a little bit to find your holes. Real easy stuff at the end of the day. This should be pretty well lined up for me though, so we'll see how that goes. And again, 25 millimeter M8 bolts, no big deal. Just kind of look down straight on top of it and get them started, because I use my wrench to go ahead and put these in. Everything's lining up pretty good. I already preset their positions so I wouldn't have to wrestle with it too much. Yeah, real easy stuff. And you can see how with this 12 millimeter plate we have here, this is going to really tie this corner into this, each other rather, the 90 and the 4590 really well. I think it's really going to add some stiffness to the whole cockpit. So we'll go ahead and run these down. So that'll take care of this bracket. Now we have all 4 of these tying in the frame together very securely. Again, just having corner brackets down here on the bottom, again, was not very confidence inspiring. But now I have a lot more confidence. I could go ahead and mount the foot now. And I'm going to wait until I flip it back around. I'm just going to put it up on blocks and get the feet installed that way. I don't have anybody to help me flip this thing, so I feel a lot better about it resting on the corner of these brackets on my cardboard when I do the flip, instead of having these guys hanging in there too, because they just kind of flop around. And yet it would probably put it in a bind once I got pressure and weight on it, because this thing's getting heavy quick. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Flip it around, and I'll get the feet installed. And I'll probably go ahead and get rid of the cardboard after I do that too, because I won't need it anymore now that we're resting on the feet. So now I have the cockpit flipped back around to the right orientation. The feet are installed, as you can see, all the way around. Everything's looking pretty good here, and it's very solid. I was able to get this cockpit leveled out, as you might imagine, pretty easily with the adjustments that's available on these feet. And yeah, it just doesn't, it's rock solid now. It feels rock solid. I can actually stand on this in the middle. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but and I'm rocking my weight, 155 pounds back and forth. And it's very, very solid. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the results so far as stiffness. And of course, that's going to do better as we put the seat rails on and we start tying more pieces into this, the pedal tray, the wheelbase stand, and those kind of things. So yeah, looking good so far. So we'll go ahead and get to the next segment. So now we're going to attach the seat rails to our base. This is out of sequence the way the instructions tell you to assemble this kit, but yeah, it's profile. I mean, once you have your base built, as long as nothing's going to get in your way, which I've already looked through the instructions, it's not, you can just assemble it any way you want to. All right, so these are 495 millimeter long profiles, and again, they're all labeled in the kit, so it's easy to find them in the corresponding hardware that we're going to be using. Speaking of which, we're going to be using these corner brackets that have the tabs on them. You can see the tab there. Flip it around, let me see a little better. And we've already got the other tab located in the channel here of our profile. So this one's ready to go. I even put the caps on so you guys can see what that looked like. Now there is another part that they list in the manual, or the instruction manual, and it's these guys here, the flat ones. These don't have the tabs like we just saw in that one. In fact, I think I got another one here, yeah. So you can see the difference here. So this has the tab on it, and this one's flat. The only difference in the numbers, and it's nice that they actually numbered these. Again, it makes things more convenient as far as trying to guess anything. But the number is exactly the same at the end, which is 003, 0001. But we have an STGP versus an STHP, with the HP being the one with the tab on it. Let's see if I can get that level so you guys can read the differences. Now this is made to sit flush here and also have a flush platform to mount something on if you need to, which is great. I'm not going to use these though. I'm going to be using a seat that has a conventional side mount seat bracket like this Sparco, and it's just going to sit right on top here. We're going to put some T-nuts in and just bolt it in, we're done. And of course we can adjust it wherever we want to. This is in case you want to mount something else, I suppose. But if you're not going to use these for the seat rails, it's nice to have 4 extra heavy-duty corner brackets to put something else on your rig later on if you need to. So that's nice that they're actually in there. Right, so we're going to be using some 15 millimeter M8 bolts. Same thing we've been using pretty much throughout, except when we put the 25 millimeter ones on the corner brackets for the foot mounts. And of course our spring ball T-nuts. And yeah, this is going to be pretty quick. I'm going to go over now, just take these guys over here, take my T-nuts and my bolts, and we'll go over, bolt this on and see what it looks like. So now I'm mounting the seat rails. I've already got this seat rail in the position that I need it to be. This is a good time, by the way, to measure the gap that you need from the center of this rail to the center of this rail based on what your seat bracket situation is, on how you're going to be mounting it. Mine's 365, and I've already measured this and got it pretty much where I want it. There's 365 center here, and I'm 365, a little bit off there. That looks good. I'll go ahead and check, because I moved the front, I always like to come back and check the back again. And yeah, I'm still looking pretty good here. I can move this profile a little bit over here. We're going to use the little T wrench that they give you the kit to do this. I need to move this back just a little bit to give it even. I'm a little bit too far forward on the front here. I'm going to slide it back a little bit. There we go. There, that's much better. Yes, I like the way that looks. So I'll go ahead and tighten this back up. Just snugging it. I'm not obviously tightening it real tight because I still want to be able to move it around a little bit if I need to. So let's go ahead and measure one more time. 365. Tap it a little bit to get where I want to be. Going out the back here, we're going to do the same thing. That looks good. And if I look down the side here, if you can see it in the picture shot here, this is actually even with this 90 series profile. It just kind of worked out to be that way. It wasn't designed that way, obviously. So yeah, as long as we got the centers we need, though, that's what's important. We have our T-nuts in the channel here, in the back 4090 back here. This is just the 4545 or 4590 back here. 4545 that we saw before when we did the base build. And I've already kind of tightened these up a little bit just to snug them up so they don't move. And the cool thing about this T-wrench, you can see what you can do here. They kind of spin around real easy when you're tightening things because there's a lot of weight in this wrench for this heavy steel bar in the handle part. So as long as you have lots of room, it's fun to use these actually. And then I'm going to use it to go ahead and push this T-nut back to where it lines up with my hole in this bracket. And I'm going to kind of lean over and look down as I'm doing that and get it centered up. Should be able to just drop our M8 nut in here. And we'll go ahead and see if we can get it to go. There it goes. And again, just kind of hand tight, that's all I'm doing. And I'll do the same thing back here. Let's go ahead and push that T-nut in, looking down on my hole here. And that should do it. Again, should be able to just drop this in, get it started, and there you go. Now we can tighten it down a little bit because I'm going to get one more measurement because things tend to move on you when you're doing this stuff. And then you get everything tightened down, it's not straight. So 365 there, we're good on the front. 365 here. All right, so we're good. We're nice and square. So my seat, when I skid over here and mount it, should be able to drop right on here, put my T-nuts in, and just bolt it right in, no problem. And that's the reason we do the measurements and get everything like we want it to be, or we think we want it to be, before we bring the seat over and go, wow, I got to take the seat back off because I'm way off. And that's happened before in the past, so that's why I'm careful to do it this way now. And again, just snugging things up here. I might have to move these a little bit once I do get the seat over here, just to tweak the angle, because a lot of seats are a little bit wider at the front than they are at the back on these, typically on a race car seat, the way they are shaped. Even though I space out, put spacers in the back of the brackets to try to get it as linear, as lateral to each other as we can, it's still sometimes a little bit of difference. But you can loosen this up when you set it down and kind of cant one to the other, or one way or the other, to get it to line up, and then tighten it back down. You're good to go because it's a fixed seat. I won't be moving it a lot back and forth, although I still will have the capability of loosening these bolts up and sliding it back and forth in case somebody comes over that's got longer legs than me and wants to use the rig. So now we have this attached. I'm going to go ahead and put the end caps on, and we'll get to the next segment. Let's take a look at the parts we're going to be using to assemble the pedal tray. Yeah, again, everything is well laid out as far as the kit parts. It's all explained in the manual, except there is one deviation for here, what I got. In the manual, it calls for these pieces, these spreader pieces, to be 495 millimeters, but they're actually 383. But they were also labeled 383 millimeters in the package when it came. And in the box, you know, everything that comes in the box for the kit, and I'll show you this again. Again, I really like the way they put everything in their own little section. This is the box that all the hardware came in for this pedal tray assembly. Put that over here. So we've got two profiles. We've got a 4590, we've got a 4545, and we've had some crazy looking brackets here. This is the most unique looking pedal tray bracket I think I've ever seen here at the SRG. And yeah, it's got a lot of holes on it, a lot of styling going on here. We have some countersunk grooves or slots, and you can see how they are countersunk there, the reflection. And we'll have some flathead M8 bolts obviously going in here through the end of these profiles because they have been tapped for M8 holes. So we'll be sandwiching these in between our two brackets. The brackets are 10 millimeters thick, and these holes will line up with our 9090 series profile over on the base over there. And I'm going to use this and get this out of the way if I can. I've already scratched one of them by moving them around, and I don't want to scratch these, they're so pretty. So anyway, this would be the center bolt, and this is going to allow us to remove some bolts and roll this one way or another to get our angle of the pedals exactly where we want them to be. A very unique design to achieve that, I think. So the center one will go in the top channel of that 90 series over there on our base. And I'm just going to drop this on here, and I can see that we're going to have two more bolts on that same top channel on that 90 series profile. And we're going to have two bolts that line up down here. I'm looking at them now. Yeah, I think that's going to line up. So I got two bolts here. So a total of 5 bolts on each side, M8 bolts, holding this to the 90 series profile, which would be plenty stiff, I would imagine. Now, this puts the slot here where this is going to sit at about 50-60 millimeters above the edge of our profile over here. All right, it's going to be sitting up about that much, right, above the profiles themselves on our 90 series. That might be enough height, it might not be, but we do have an option which I may use because I typically like to mount my pedals higher to get the GT driving position I like. But we can actually take this and move it up and use these series holes on the bottom, and that would give me, I'll kind of line it up here, see if I can get it kind of straight. So if I got one here, I can have one here. Wow, wait a minute. I can get one here, I can get one here. Doesn't look like I can get one there, but I should be able to get one here and one here. So that's 4 bolts that should be able to be put in still. So we're one short, but we don't need that rotating or pivot point bolt, if you will, once we have it assembled. So yeah, I like this assembly. They give us again some corner angle brackets here, and these do not have the tabs on them, so that if you want to have this something sitting on top of this profile and you need extra room for it, you can put one of these on there and mount it that way through holes. In other words, if you have a set of pedals that require a through hole, you can't do that, obviously, the profile, because we've just got T-nuts in here and you can only come this way with it. So this will give you a through hole mount that you can mount to your profiles. Just something extra they throw in. There are, looks like 6 30 millimeter M8 bolts here. And these will be the ones going in and attaching these profiles, which makes sense because we've got 2 holes on this profile and 1 on this on each side, so that's 6. They give us 14 of our T-nuts. We have 4 18 millimeter bolts, M8 bolts, which is the standard bolt we've been using. I've called it 15 millimeter because I'm only measuring from the threads, but if you measure all the way to the cap, it's 18, so whatever. 20 millimeter bolts here. And I believe these 20 millimeter bolts are going to be the long ones that we use because we have 10 millimeter extra to go through here. Whereas, you know, the usual stuff, if we're going to mount like these corner brackets, and that's what these 4 are for, mounting our corner brackets here, then it'll be the regular 18 millimeter. So pretty simple here, what we're going to be doing. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and, now there's 2 ways I'm thinking of doing this. Now in the instructions it tells you to mount these first and then come in and kind of drop these in between. Of course, you would mount them and leave them kind of loose so that you can wiggle them around as you drop these in between them, and then secure these into the slots. So I suppose you could pre-assemble and just drop the whole thing in there, which I think is what I'm going to try to do because I want to see, well, the whole thing is you got a lot of bolts to put in here. You got 5 of them if you do it the OEM way, and we're going to do it the OEM way first. But again, I just wanted to show you these holes, so later on if you see my pedal tray or this thing sticking up higher, you know that I've got 4 bolts in these holes in this profile. Or if I don't and I can only get 2 or something, then obviously I'll let you know that. But yeah, I'm going to do it the OEM way, so I'm going to go ahead and mount the plates first, and then we're going to come in and put these in, and I'll show you sequences of me doing that. Well, I already have one of these pedal tray brackets attached to the 90 by 90 series profile, as you can see, and I'm going to give you a shot this way so you can watch me install this one. Now, I do have my T-nuts in the channels already. Remember, we're going to want 3 T-nuts on the top channel, and we're going to want 2 on the bottom channel down there. Now, it's important that you get the sequence right here, or the holes won't line up with the channels. So you need to follow the directions carefully here. Now, what I did was start out when I put this on with the center one. And once I had it hanging with the center bolt, it's a simple matter of just putting this in, and I can actually look down like this. Kind of guide it in as I'm looking down. And make sure I get in the channel. See if I can get the thread started there, and there it is. I think. Nope, I missed it. All right, so there we go. I think I got it that time. All right, so once this is installed, and this also gives us a good look at the angle adjustment. So you can actually swivel this. Of course, I suppose most people, if you did use it, you would be angling it this way. So you can see how slick that works. But to change the angle, you're going to have to remove the 4 other bolts that we're going to affix here. So we want the screws that are going to be on the top channel in the middle. We want one over here on the very far hole circle, and one on the counter side there. I've already got those lined up. And what you want to do is put them all in anyway at first. That's what I did. And then I just took the center one and attached it like you see here. And then I took this handy hex T wrench that is supplied with your kit, and was able to take the T-nuts and bend over, look down, get you a flashlight if you want to, and just kind of take this in here like this and just move the T-nuts. And you can just slide them while you're looking in the hole like this. You can actually slide them and watch the holes line up. At least that's the idea. And once you have it lined up, then you should be able to come back with your bolt and put it on the same line as that bolt and get it started. Keep them all loose, of course. And of course, I've already got the one over here lined up. Start that one. You might have to wiggle them a little bit when you start turning them in. That's not unusual. All right, so now I have the outside circle of holes. Their bolts are filled up. We have one in the center. So now we're going to want to come down to the bottom channel and put them down here in this inner circle of holes. If you don't do that, if you put these in these holes, which it will work, obviously they're on the same plane here, these holes, if you went down here and tried to put these nuts in here, it wouldn't work, because these holes are not going to line up with the channel correctly on the outside. You can only do it from the inside. I suppose you could still put these on the inside corner if you wanted to, in here, in this inside ring, but you're kind of defeating the purpose of spreading the load across as much area as we can get. So that's why we do it this way. So now these should go in because I've already got them spaced. And again, you just use your long wrench to push them where you need to be while you're looking down, get the holes lined up. Go ahead and look down here, see which hole I'm supposed to be going in. And there we go. And this one should go in here, I believe. And there we go. All right. So now we have both of the plates attached. They're kind of in the same length, but it's no big deal. If I need to move this, you can just loosen all these up, half a turn, full turn, whatever. And I always kind of take pressure off of it as I'm moving it, because I don't want to scratch these profiles if I can possibly manage it. Yeah, you just don't want to scratch this stuff up. It's so pretty. I don't want to mess it up. All right. And then I'm going to tighten it back down. So of course now all we got to do is put in the crossing pieces of profile. Remember, we had that 45-90 and we have a 45-45, and by the directions the 45 goes up here and the 90 is going back here. Although we'd have a big slot in here that you can do whatever you want to with. In fact, remember, we've got a couple of extra pieces of profile that we should be able to cut down if we need to have even more area here to mount your pedals. But I think a 90 series flat here and a 45 up front is going to be plenty to get most pedal sets mounted, and we'll find that out once we actually mount a pedal set. But right now what I'm going to do is we'll go to the next segment where I'm attaching the 90, 45 over here, and the 45 over here. As you can see, I've already got the 4590 series cross piece assembled, and it's in there loose. I don't have, these bolts are very loose right now because you don't want to get all this stuff real tight yet until we get the final piece in. And you might even want to leave it loose until you get your seat attached and figure out where you're going to want it as far as lengthwise in the chassis itself. So you have to be kind of easy. These are very tight fitting profiles. You're probably going to end up scratching the black on this when you do this, but this is typical of most cockpits, being very tight the way they are, and they should be tight. You don't want them too loose, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. Remember, we're using these 25 millimeter, I believe they're 25, the flathead bolts. And yeah, you can't miss those because they're in the kit, in the packet. And there's only 6 of these because you only need 2 up here and 1 on the over here on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in, engaging it from this side. I should be able to find the hole. Famous last words. Can he find the hole? All right. And again, you want to keep this stuff loose so you can fill around with it, because it's going to can give you some problems going in. I think I got it there. Yep. And while I'm still supporting it, I'm going to go ahead and put in this bolt on this side. And these flatheads are going to go flush with the brackets. Obviously, it's should be a little easier for me to get started on this side, but depending on the angle I get. There we go. These countersunk grooves are going to be able to take these flathead bolts, and it'll be all clean looking when you're done. I'm going to go ahead and just put these in a little bit further. I'm still not going to get it, like I said, fully tight, because I want to be able to move this around a little bit. Not only that, but I'm not exactly sure where my pedal width is going to be that I need. And I'll find that out once I figure out which pedals I'll be running. I'm going to be running the SimTrex for this review, so that'll determine where, and of course whichever pedals you run will also determine where we're going to put these bars. We could even take this one and move it up here if I needed to, or this one back here, depending on which pedal spacing you're going to need. And remember, if you have the kind of pedal sets that are a through hole, and you can, in other words, you won't be able to use the nice spring ball T-nuts that we've been using in these profile channels up till now, then yeah, you're going to have to use those corner brackets they give you, and they give you 4 of them. Bolt them to the sides here, and then run your bolts through those holes and put a nut on the other side. Simple stuff here. And obviously with all the bolts in here, we're not going to have any tilt adjustment. I'm not going to use any because my pedals don't need it, but if you have some, it's nice to know it's there. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It is a little, as far as fiddly to get everything in, as you might imagine, but once you have it all in, I guess you're pretty good to go after that. You don't have to worry about anything else. So yeah, we got this mounted. What we'll do is get to the next segment. Let's go over the parts we're going to be using for our wheelbase uprights. We have 2 pieces of 4590, and these are 720 millimeters long. We have these massive corner brackets, and these have the tabs on them. See the tabs there? So these are going to be obviously very strong, these gusseted corner brackets like this. So essentially what's going to happen is our wheelbase upright is going to be sitting here, and then we're going to have this in the inside. So my legs are sitting this way. So this will be towards the inside of the cockpit. And then we'll have 4 bolts in here, and we'll have 4 down there in the 90 series profiles that are forming the base. So we'll have a total of 8 M8 bolts supporting this on the bottom. And we're also going to be putting a couple of these in on the bottoms down there. And this is going to be on the outside of the frame. Once we get it over there, it'll obviously make sense if it's not making sense right now. And we are using the tabbed corner brackets here. And it calls for a total of 24, but I think it's 22. Yeah, 24 is 24 bolts. We've got those here. We're using the 18 millimeter long socket head cap. M8s. I got all those counted out, and we've got, again, these nice spring ball T-nuts that we'll be using throughout the installation. Pretty simple stuff. If you've been following up to now, then yeah, really nothing spectacular going on here. So we'll go ahead and get the parts over there and start assembling it. I've already got the wheelbase upright over here installed. It's very loose, and I'm going to leave it that way until I can get the motor mount put on, make sure everything is the same length from the front to where the bracket is. I did already measure that, and it does match up, but yeah, I still do that anyway. And of course, you can see I've pre-assembled this upright with the big heavy-duty corner bracket there, that 8-bolt gusseted corner bracket. And I have my corner brackets on the side here that will be attaching down here on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and I've already got my T-nuts in here, and I have them spaced correctly for these holes. At least I hope they're still spaced correctly. And it's really pretty simple here. I'm just going to, and because we have, remember, these tabs on the bottom, it kind of self-aligns. So I'm just going to kind of set it right there, and they just dropped in right there. And I have this just tight enough on these bolts here that you can't see from that point of view, the one that's close up. Kind of snugged up, but not a whole lot. So I'm going to take 4 of these M8 bolts and just drop them in the holes. I'm looking straight down. It looks like one of them's a little off, so I'm going to get up on the top here and look straight down and bump this around so I can see what's going on. I think one over here needs to come over just a little bit. That looks a little better. All right, and that's the beauty of it. You can look straight down and see where all your holes are. So I'm just going to drop these in. Very simple stuff here. I'm going to go ahead and use the T-wrench that came with the kit. Go over here and kind of tilt this over now so I can make sure I can get to my T-nuts in there. And that one went in fine. That one's in good. That one went in good. And that one's good too. So when you pre-align everything, you see how smoothly it can go. Doesn't mean it will go. Now all we have to do is, I'm still loose on these guys here, and you always need to check if it's sticking a little bit, because I don't want to mar this up. And I'm bringing this bottom up here to the top channel. Now in the manual it shows it on the bottom one, which you can do that too. But I want to maximize the height of this wheelbase upright, because I tend to like mine up a bit the way that my driving position usually ends up. So I'm going to take my fingers and kind of snug this up finger tight, so hoping this won't slip back down from its own weight and stay where I need it to be. Now it's just a matter of getting down here and looking and seeing where my hole is, and then moving my T-nut over so I can see that it's in the hole where it needs to be. And you can stick this in there if you get your hole a little bit off on the T-nut and still slip it around a little bit. So that looks like it's pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, that one grabbed just fine. And we'll go over here and do the same thing. Again, it's just, you got to be patient, and you got to get down on your hands and knees in awkward positions sometimes to make these things go in like you want them to and see what's going on. So I'm going to see if I can get this one started, and that's good. So everything's started now, and like I said before, I'm going to leave it loose until we get over here with our front mount motor bracket, rather the front mount that's going to hold the wheelbase. And then once that's over here, then we'll go ahead and tighten everything up. And when we do that and get everything tight, we'll have the wheelbase mount actually acting as a supporting junction across the top of this wheelbase mount here. So yeah, I can't see any problems with that. I think it's going to be very stiff, especially once we get the front mount put on. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the front mount and the parts that we'll be using for that. Now we'll take a look at the parts that are going to make up our front mount wheel plate assembly that we're going to be attaching to the wheelbase uprights that we've already installed. First, we have this massive plate for the front. This is a 13mm thick aluminum plate. You can see we've got some styling cutouts here on the front part of it. We have slots to accommodate different sized servo motors, and we have some countersunk holes on each end here, and we'll be using flat heads for that, of course. We also have 2 of these and these are 10 millimeters thick, and these will be our side pieces. And this will be the top, and this is the bottom. So this is going to be sitting up here like this, right behind. Oh, let's see, my hand's in the way for that. Let's try it this way. It'll be sitting in right behind like that. And we're going to put these together with these corner brackets. And these are the GPs, the STGP, which don't have the guides on them because we don't need that for when we're putting these together. Now, of course, we get a bunch of hardware to do this with. We've got some 20 millimeter M8 bolts that we're going to be using to attach these pieces to our uprights. And of course, we have the T-nuts to accommodate these. So these will go together. Then we have our nuts back here. These are M8 nuts. And we're going to be using these on the back of our brackets here, back in the back here when we're actually attaching. So we'll have these flathead bolts going in the front part to make it look good. We've got 2 packs of these, and we have a 30 millimeter long piece, and that's for these holes. We got 2 over here, we got 2 over there, and we have 4 of those bolts. Because it's a thicker piece, it's 30 millimeters long. Then we have 25 millimeter long, same thing, flathead, but these are only 25 because we will be going through these guys, which are 10 millimeters. We don't need as long of a bolt to make this happen. Pretty straightforward what we're going to do here. I'm just going to flip this around, get my wrench over here, and I'm going to stand up these corner brackets like that. And I'll put another one over here just to get a bearing on what it's going to look like when I finish bolting it together. And remember, this rounded part here will go on the bottom. This is the top. So that's how it's oriented. And this will sit on here like this. I'm looking straight down here at my holes. It looks like everything is lining up. I gotta go sideways a little bit. Okay, so that's all going to line up pretty well. It's nice when all the holes line up when you're looking at them. I'm going to do this first. I'm going to take these long 30 millimeter bolts and put them through the front and do one of these corner brackets each. I'll go ahead and put the bolt in like that. You can see how that's going to sit nice and flush. And then come back here, hold it in, put my corner bracket in like this, and then we'll go ahead and open our nut bag of nuts. And I'll run one of those down on top of here. Very simple, very easy to do. This is the easy part. And I'm just going to run it down enough to keep it from flopping all over the place. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and put this flathead underneath. And again, remember, these are the 30 millimeters because they have to be long enough to get through the thicker front plate as opposed to the side plates over here. Another nut over here. Okay, we got one going here. I'm just going to do one side so you can see how this goes together. It does pretty good just with your fingers while the bottom was turning. I don't know how far I could go before that would stop turning. Right, so now we have the countersunk hole side, and we want that to be sitting in here like this. And again, that's bottom, this is top. Keep your references correct and you'll be fine. Now, oh, by the way, I'm going to need my 25 mils for this. Wrench out of the way. And we have 4 of those. Oops, might help if I had the right bracket. I'm just going to put this through and feed it through that way. I'm going to come back in. It's going to be a little close here with these nuts, huh? Yeah, there's a little interference with this nut here. Turn this around here. So I already have one nut on there, right? So it's taking up some room in the deep part of this corner bracket. So much room that I can't really get this nut to start on the bolt. So all you have to do is push out the bolt a little bit, and then that will let this nut slip by. And then you can go ahead and tighten it up, roll it on there. And once you roll it on there, it clears the other nut, and you'll never have any more issue with that. So it's just basically a technique that you need to use to make this work correctly. So I'm going to take this other 25 millimeter long bolt and do the same thing. I'm going to stick it through the hole, and I'm not going to push it in very deep because now I know I have an interference issue with the other nut if I do. So I'm just going to keep it clean and do that. Okay, pretty simple, right? No problems. And I'm going to use the 5mm wrench that I have here, and I'm going to use the 13mm that they actually give us in the kit. That's because it's a pretty good wrench, so why not use it, right? I can't get this in here. That's another thing. The box end's not going to work because there's still interference between these two nuts to keep me from doing that. But the open end will do just fine. I can just hold it here, and on the back end here, I'm just going to snug it up. And I'll get a Allen wrench that's like an L to give a final tighten on these to make sure they're good and tight. And they will tighten up good and stay there, I'm pretty sure. They use a, kind of use my palm there to tighten that one down. These nuts have that serrated edge on them. See it right there? So that kind of digs into the metal when you tighten it down so it doesn't go anywhere. So now I'm going to flip up this one on the front. Let's do it like this. Okay, it doesn't fall. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I just did there. Do it over here. So let's put this on here. And turn it. Get a little snug there, and we'll do this one, and we're done. Pretty simple, huh? What could be easier? Alright, so we have one wing attached, and again I'm going to check my orientation, make sure I didn't get it backwards. So you can see, obviously this is the top, and we have the flat on the top, and we have our corner brackets in there, holding everything nice and stiff. Yeah, this is going to be a good wheel mount. And as you might imagine just by looking at it, I don't know how well that conveys on the video, but yeah, this is going to be a nice heavy duty wheel mount setup. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other side on, and when we come back, in fact, when we come back, I'm going to be putting it on. And to put it on, they give us some more 20mm M8 bolts, and the T-nuts, they're going to go into the Wheelbase upright profiles, those 4590 profiles that we already put on. And I usually just slide these things in. I'll go ahead and preload the bolt and the T-nut, and then just go in between those uprights while they're still loose, and just take this thing, kind of just slide it in there like that. And we'll see how that works when we come back. Now I have the front motor mount plate installed to the uprights, and it was the usual fiddly dance to get this put in, but it's going to be a nice stiff appliance, I'm sure, when we hang our motor on it. The T-nuts, obviously we have to go down the channels with these at the same time, and we have a pair down here and a pair up here, which does make it a little bit of a challenge to go back and forth from this side over to that side and get everything going at the same time. There's not a lot of clearance as far as the T-nut and the plate here, even because we have a 20mm bolt here. It's not that long. I'm trying to show you here if you can see that going in. So the bolt doesn't, it goes in about 5-6 millimeters, I guess. And I tried a 25mm bolt. These are 20s, and it was too long. It bottomed out in the channel, so 20 is the only way to go unless you want to custom cut some bolts. However, I've actually used 25s before just to give me more room to play with these bolts and T-nuts attached to them as they slide down the channel. The more slack you have this way, the easier it is to get them started, basically. That's the whole thing. But if you do this only once, yeah, I probably wouldn't even bother with it. But because I change things around a lot, yeah, I use a 25mm bolt with a washer, because that makes it like 22mm or 22.5 or something, putting a washer on this side. Anyway, so yeah, but everything bolted in like it should. It's looking good. Everything is still loose. I haven't decided where I'm going to have this upright sitting yet. So you can see it's still loose. And so is my pedal tray. It's still loose also, but I'm about to tighten those things up and do a mock-up of where I think everything should be. I want to be careful here when you're moving this around. You don't want to scratch this very nice looking blue profile here. It has that, I guess you could call that a chrome blue. I'm trying to find the right word for it. But yeah, it's kind of a chrome blue the way it shines so much. Right, so that's installed. So all we have to do now is go over and see what we have for a shifter mount solution. So let's take a look at the parts we get for the side mount assembly. And first we have a 585mm long piece of 4590 profile, and we have a 360mm long piece of the 4545. And they call for the directions to have it mounted like this. So we're going to have a corner bracket in here to make the connection between this profile and this profile. And we're going to have one over here that's going to be making the connection from this bottom profile to the 9090 profiles. And I don't think there's a requirement to have it on the inside. You can put it on the outside if you want, I would imagine. Depends on what you want to do. And you can also add another one down here if you feel like you need more support for your particular controls. And that's what I have. I have it on both sides. I believe in heavy duty. So when we come up to the front, we're going to be mounting to the wheelbase upright, which we saw already, and that will have the 45 face of that 4590 profile facing this way because it's coming upright. And it's typical, again, the way that we will be mounting these on profile cockpits. We'll have a corner bracket in here, and we'll have another one over here to make the connection for this assembly to the rest of the cockpit, which is fine. That's all I have on mine that I use all the time, and it's very stiff. It does a fine job. So there's also an option here that they give you if you want to buy it. It's called the Pro option, and that includes two 180 millimeter pieces of the 45 profile, and then they put some caps on the end of it to make it look nice. And this is the system I use, and I just got some pieces of black profile on the cockpit I use every day rather. And it's pretty simple, but it's very effective because it gives you a lot of flexibility. And instead of just having this, so if I have a control that has a flange on it that's this wide or this wide or this, whatever the case may be, that means I can't really attach it to this because it's straight up and down, and it's going to be hanging off. The holes won't line up, so I'm going to have to manufacture or find a plate, whatever, to put on here to mount first, and then have some holes for that to fit onto the plate to accommodate the holes around the flange, however many there are. Usually there's only 4. But this alleviates a lot of that. These two little pieces of profile really take a lot of the headache away from that, which means that now I can mount the control, and depending on the base of the control and the flange widths on that control, this is 180 millimeter. I don't have anything I think I've ever had in a shifter that was wider than that. So you put your T-nuts in here, and you can mount it directly to this. Simple enough, right? And it gives us more room this way, and we don't have to go fabricate something, and it all matches and looks nice. Now, there's a couple of ways to mount this. You can mount it this way, with one in the back and one in the front on each one of these profiles, and of course we can adjust each individual profile for the requirements of the control's mounting pattern. Or you can do this. You can mount them underneath, and we have one on underneath like this, which may be a better way to mount it if, see, I can get this to lay flat, there we go. It might be a better way to mount it for the torsional forces that you put on your control. What I mean by that is, we rarely or ever, because we're reaching out to grab our control, we're not pulling straight back along the plane of this piece of profile here. We're pulling at a bit of an angle, and depending on which side your controls are mounted on, it'll be an angle to the left or to the right that we're pulling, and that puts a twisting torque on these pieces here, and of course the piece supporting them. So if you put it like this, have one in the front, and that's easy to adjust back and forth, obviously. It's just easy to reach. Once your seat, it depends on how close this is going to be to your seat. That will determine how easy it is to run this type. Because now you've got your seat interfering down here to get your wrench to this stuff. So I usually just run it like this, and if I think I'm going to have a twisting problem, then I'll just run another one under here like this. And that will keep it from, that twisting torque from moving anything. But that requires another bracket. So it's something to think about. And they don't configure the Pro kit that way. So you only get 2 brackets. But you can also order another bracket if you order your kit. So I found this to be a very functional way to mount my controls. Now, let's say I'm mounting a handbrake or a shifter that's very tall. Well, this can't go low enough. In other words, this profile, because it's 90 millimeters tall, it's a 4590. Or if I was running a 4080 on like a 40 series profile, same thing. Then this, even with it all the way down, bumping into the bottom frame profile, is still too tall. I would just eliminate this, and you can just take these. Let's say we're on the bottom profile now, and we take these in, instead of having them mounted to this piece, we'll just mount them to our base profile, and now I can mount the peripherals to this, and usually the height requirement would be where I need it to be. So it's very flexible. But then again, we're talking about profile cockpits here, which is you just cannot beat them, period. I don't care what anybody tells you. Yeah, you can't beat them for the adjustability and how easy it is to customize your controls to where you want them to be so they're comfortable, so you're not killing yourself and wearing yourself out on longer stints when you're driving. We also get the spring ball T-nuts, and we get 22 of those in the kit, and it came in its own box. This side mount box has all of its parts located here. Again, a very well thought out kit here, the way they package all this stuff. I mean, it makes it very easy for the inexperienced person to get in and build one of these things. So yeah, T-nuts, and we've got some 18mm M8 bolts that we've been using throughout the build. And we have one little end piece here. So the end piece will be for this. When it's up here like this, obviously we don't need one on the bottom. This will be sitting on the top, so it makes it look nice. Right. So there we have it. That's the side mount kit, and I'm going to be configuring it just like we saw before. I'm going to go ahead and pre-assemble this. That's how I usually do this. And put my brackets up, all my T-nuts in, put my brackets, locate them where they need to be, and just take the whole assembly together like this over there and just mount it up, and yeah, you're done. So when we come back, I'll have it mounted to the cockpit and we'll see how that went. So here's the shifter mount installed. And yeah, just like I said when we were on the bench taking a look at it, we have a corner bracket on the top of the 4590 and on the bottom attached directly to the 45 piece of our wheelbase upright. And back here we have the 45, and it's mounted down here with its own corner bracket, and up at the top it's mounted with a corner bracket to the 4590 rather. Now, if I was going to use this every day as mine, I would probably put, and I got some extra corner brackets in this kit, I'd probably not put another corner bracket back here, just for the heck of it. You know, you don't put a lot of lateral sideways motion on these. You're usually pulling, you know, kind of straight back, not perfectly straight back obviously because we're reaching over from the seat, but it's just something I'm thinking out loud here when I'm looking at it, because I have it on my other cockpits and it just helps me visualize it being stronger, I guess. All right, so the Pro pieces are on, as you can see. Corner bracket down here, corner bracket over here, and these are our 180 profile pieces. Everything's cinched down tightly, very nice. The torque or twisting motion that I'll be putting on this when I'm shifting will be equalized by mounting it this way. And I don't have the seat mounted, and that's one of the reasons I went ahead and just put the corner bracket down there, because I don't have any interference with bolt access. Of course, we got the front one already attached the same way, and I have these spaced out so they will handle the Pro Sim H pattern shifter I'll be using for testing purposes. So yeah, it looks good. Everything went together well. No issues anywhere. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and get to the next segment. Now let's put our keyboard accessory together. It comes with a 495mm long profile here, and this is going to obviously support the keyboard material itself once we have it mounted. We have another piece that is 90mm long. We have one corner bracket with the tabs, and that would be the HPs. We have this cool hinge, and again, Vention makes this hinge also. It's a 270-degree hinge. If I take this part and move it all the way around, you can see it all 90 more degrees and we'll be at 360. So this gives us a pretty good range of keyboard movement, I would think. And we also get some screws, or bolts rather, M8s, and we get some T-nuts. Some of these I've already used because I didn't get any instructions with this. You know, this is one of the first units they shipped out, and the keyboard instructions just weren't there, were ready at the time they shipped it, but I figured it out. It wasn't that hard. So what we're going to do here is take this 90mm piece and put a couple of T-nuts in it, and then we're going to take this and mount it to that. Well, let's leave it flat for now. It keeps falling over. And I'm going to use, these are 18mm long M8s that we've been using throughout this video. And we're just going to take this, line them up, drop them in, get them started, and we should be close to where we need to be here. I might make some final adjustments once I actually have it on the cockpit and mounted. So we'll just kind of snug those up a little bit. And I'm probably going to move this up or down depending on how this is going to go together with our keyboard. So it goes this way. Okay. So it'll be mounted this way. Let's say this is my upright, my wheelbase upright, the 45mm side. It'll be like this. and then I'll come in here and put this like this. Okay, and that will give me, you can see how it'll go all the way around to the side, and it'll come all the way around over here like that. So that gives us some pretty good range, like I said. The only issue is how do we attach this guy to this guy? All right, and what I decided to do was put it on like this. I'll take a corner bracket. Now see, I already got a T-nut in here. I'm going to take this corner bracket and put it in here like this, and join these two guys like this. What do you think? Think that'll work? Move it over a little bit. So this will actually be sitting on top, and this will join it together. So that means I need, go ahead and put this down a little bit. My T-nut's a little bit too close to where I needed it to be. Go ahead and put one in here. And I'm going to put the logo down, so I'm going to do it this way. Put it this way, like that. That works. And we'll go ahead and just put this little puppy in here like that. Not tighten it up, obviously. I want to still be able to move it around. So now I need a T-nut in this. Let's see where this is going to be. Let's see, the keyboard will be on this side. Whoops, go this way. So when the keyboard's parked, I want it all the way out. I'm just kind of thinking to myself here as I'm doing this. It'll be sitting like this when it's all the way out. So the other profile will be like this. And my keyboard will be sitting out like a door, open the door to get out. So keeping that in mind, we'll just do this. Hopefully this translates well once I get over to the cockpit and mount this thing. I'm pretty sure it will though. All right, so that's all we need there. So I need to put a T-nut in here. So I will do that. Yep, let's make sure I'm still right. So you can get a little disoriented when you're looking around at different angles on this stuff. So I'm going to take a bolt and put it through my corner bracket and get it in my T-nut. Make sure my T-nut's basically where I need it to be. It feels like it is. All right. And then we'll just kind of snug these up. Kind of rotate a little bit. You always do this with corner brackets so you can pull them in alternating sides so they square up nice. I'll snug that up. And then it's going to sit like this when it's open. So again, my Wheelbase upright is here, and this is bolted to it, and this will be the keyboard presented to me, whatever angle I want it to, really. I mean, it can be anything. But the important thing is now when I want to open or get the keyboard out of my way, it will swivel all the way around and fold back over like this. So the door will be open. Door closed, door open. All right, now I'm going to wait to put this on. And this is a big piece. This is also 495 millimeters to mount on this and match. And it'll be on top like this. And we've got some flathead M8 bolts right here. They're going to go into this, and of course I'm going to need a couple of T-nuts, and there are two left over here, so that I can screw my lid on. But I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to go over there and attach this first, because I don't need this thing flopping around in my way when I'm trying to get everything positioned where I think it should be. Just like that. Looks like they're further in than that, maybe about like that, but we'll adjust once I get over there. So that's all there is to it. Pretty simple, huh? So now we got the door a little open for us, and now all I have to do is, and I can adjust this too. I mean, there's going to be some fine tuning once I get over there, I'm sure, once I get this thing attached, to see what works and if there's any interference with anything over there. So when we come back, I'll have the camera and I'll show you the final implementation of this and how it's working. Now I have the keyboard tray assembly mounted, and I did do a little different assembly here, and I want to show you guys that. Where before on the bench I had this long piece on top of this 90 millimeter long piece. Well, if you do that, it won't clear this when it tries to open. It hits on this part right in here. So I just took it and put it beside it and moved the corner bracket a little bit further down and tightened everything up, and it's good to go. As you can see, this thing will swivel now all the way around and straighten out so that we're sitting there. There's our wheel, and there's our keyboard, and there's the hinge there. So it works pretty slick. It's a very good hinge they have here. It feels very solid. Of course, I don't know about, you know, a year down the road, we'll have to wait and see because of the weight of the keyboard we'll put on this. Now we do have a cap to put on this that came in the kit, so I'll be putting that on in a little bit. And yeah, everything is looking pretty good here. It's working good. Door's closed. And we come over here to get out of the cockpit, and it goes all the way over there, as you can see. We had it before. And now the door is open. Right, so that went pretty well. We'll go ahead and get to the next segment. So this is a solution for their trackball mouse pad. I use a trackball myself. And really it's not much to this. They just taken a corner bracket and bolted it to the little swivel axle here that it comes wherever they get this from. Looks like it's made in China, but wherever they get this from, it looks like it's going to be a good support. And really it's arbitrary where you're going to put this thing. It has one T-nut on it, so we can put it in a channel somewhere, tighten it down, and yeah, and it's got the corner bracket that doesn't have any tabs on it. So this is really kind of arbitrary, like I said, where you're going to be using this. It depends on you, the peripherals you have mounted to your rig. I'm not sure where I'm going to put this yet. I really need to get the setup done where I have all my gear on, like the shifter and the wheel and everything situated before I figure out where I can stick this, where it won't be in my way, but still within reach when I need to get to the trackball or mouse if you're using one of those. So yeah, this is really the last accessory that we have in our review here to look at. And like I said, it's pretty simple. Final thoughts on the Pro Sim Racing Cockpit from the guys at All-in-One Gaming. Out of the box, I was first struck by the unique chrome blue anodized finish that is used on these 45 series profiles. I have reviewed profile cockpits that were gray, black, and even a white powder-coated one, but this is my first blue one. This cockpit is built with 45 series profiles, which are just a bit larger than a 40 series profile. Another thing that stood out in this kit was how well organized it is. There is a good assembly manual supplied that references all the parts needed to assemble a section of the cockpit. The parts are divided up into groups depending on the part of the cockpit that you are constructing. The parts are also contained in well-labeled bags, so you won't get them mixed up when you're doing your build. The corner brackets used to assemble most of the cockpit are very solid units with locking tabs that grip the profile channels in a way that ensures a strong connection, I think. I did take note of the way All-in-One Gaming has integrated a very stout support system into the 13mm thick foot mounts, adding no less than 7 M8 bolts to every corner of the base assembly. The wheelbase upright supports are connected to the beefy 90x90 cockpit side rails with large 8-bolt gusseted corner brackets. I received a front mount wheelbase plate with this review unit. It is 13mm thick with 10mm thick side supports, giving a good solid feel once they are mated together and the nuts and bolts are properly torqued down. The pedal tray is quite unique in its design, with a multitude of different angle settings available. Each side bracket is secured to the base 90/90 profiles with 5 M8 bolts. This should provide a solid place to mount your pedals. My unit also came with the Pro Upgrade accessory option, which adds some profiles, corner brackets, and hardware to get them mounted to the included side mount assembly. Speaking of which, it is in the traditional configuration that you find on most profile cockpits. I also received a keyboard tray mount that operates quite smoothly and has ample area on the tray for most any size keyboard. The cockpit went together without any dramas and all the parts required for the assembly were present. Once fully assembled and all the fasteners are properly tightened, you have a very solid feeling cockpit. Of course, I still need to get the wheelbase, pedal set, shifter, and seat mounted to truly test the cockpit for stiffness, which I will be doing in part 2 of this 2-part video series review. But the result of the build process makes me think it will perform well under real-life testing conditions. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.